All right, Cubs fam, welcome back to another video. This is going to be a follow-up video, and I'm really not sure what to expect yet, but we're bringing Nemesis back on the channel. If you guys remember, about a month ago, we did an interview with Nem about his decision to he's thinking about maybe quitting Star Wars Galaxy of Heroes, a $100,000 invested into this game whale, pushed to the brink of leaving the game because of kind of the current game climate, decisions by the development studio, and other factors. And I am bringing them back on after we've seen changes. We've seen the road ahead, or the state of the galaxy. We've seen some changes to Conquest or some pending changes to Conquest, changes to the gear crunch, changes to a number of other things that he was kind of waiting for, along with the addition of Relic 9, to decide whether or not he was going to stay. And so, Nem, before we ask any questions, just say hello. How you doing today, Nem?
Hey Cubs fam. Happy to be back. Happy to talk to you guys. I always appreciate the time that you give me to sit and talk with you.
Absolutely. I'm gonna give you. Well, actually, no, I'm gonna ask this question. So before we even ask if you're gonna quit the game or not, but I think this is sometimes good to spearhead with people. But we've got. I'm not sure how to say this. Let's see. How do I say this guy's name? Tenorquist. Say no offense, but 100K is bat crazy. That's like a huge down payment on a house. Anything you want to say to that, Nem? I think this is kind of an interesting subject that we tackle sometimes on this channel. Like, why spend that much money on a mobile game?
Well, it's a good question. And trust me, that's come up a lot of times on it. And thankfully in my life, I've done some things to be able to give myself the disposable income, to be able to spend that money however I seemed fit. Yeah. And part of that was I was happy spending in the game. Everybody has their own little things that they like to spend on. If you like to go to sporting events, get season tickets to a football team or basketball, or you like to collect guns, you like to do everybody has those things that they like. For me, this was my thing. So for the longest time, I enjoyed spending in the game. So that's the reason why I did it.
Yeah, and I think that deserves respect. I mean, we kind of see sometimes there can be a rub between the free-to-play, low spenders and the whales of the world. And you know what? You do you, right? If this is something else that I'll tell people, sometimes I see people kind of get into this like, wow, that must be a huge problem for them. And look, I mean, maybe some people have a spending problem on this game, but you don't fake spending $100,000 on anything if you don't have some kind of disposable income to get to that amount. And so, pure hobby. Anyway, it was just kind of a question that caught my eye. I thought it'd be fun to kind of spearhead that again, because I think it's important to talk about that sometimes, because we do have several people who kind of get up into those crazy echelons of spending on this game. So, okay, Nem, the big golden question. Last time we talked, you were thinking about leaving the game. You were going to kind of wait and see. I think what you told us was that you're going to wait for Relic 9, right?
Yeah, that was where we left off at last time.
Okay, Relic 9 is here. What's your decision, Nem? Where are you at?
So I am here and not here all at the same time. I am
You're
still
Snoke.
playing. Yeah, I am here playing the game.
Okay.
But I am basically doing the bare minimum.
Okay.
So for the most part, I come in, I wake up in the morning, I'll clear as many of the dailies as I can on both of my accounts. If we have a territory battle or a territory war, I'll do my stuff in the morning. Other than that, I might check the cash in whenever it's a refresh.
Right.
For the most part, I spend less than an hour in the game a day between two accounts.
Okay.
Sometimes it's less than 15 minutes.
So you're kind of on life support. It sounds like a little bit, just not quite ready to pull the plug completely, but still not investing a ton.
So it really is the social aspect that keeps me in it. If it wasn't for the fact that my guilds, so like where my alt is, I'm the leader in Ghosts of Mortis, and then where my my main account is with you in Port.
Viva la Port.
Yeah, I do love Port, and so
Yeah,
if it
it's a good
wasn't
group.
for the guilds that I'm in and me liking the people that are there, and feeling a certain level of responsibility to them,
Yeah.
then I probably would have quit.
Mm. So right now, if I understand you right, it sounds like the game itself is no longer enough to keep you here, but the community is keeping you here for now.
It is 100% the community. The game has nothing to do with it. And I even sent you a message whenever we were working this out that this one's going to be a very a much quicker interview. As
Yeah.
to be honest, I really have no idea what's going on in the game.
Yeah.
I care so little that at this point in time, I don't really know what's going on. I saw that they wanted to finally do the make good for the Shock T thing and give everybody some get two or get one or whatever, whichever one it was, and some watch shards.
Right.
And they couldn't even do that correct the first time around. So, I mean, it is what it is right now. It really is just at a point where I'm playing it for the community and not necessarily for myself.
So I'm curious if you've thought about this. How sustainable do you think that is? Is that something that you think you're just doing for a while, just kind of waiting to see if things change? Or do you think it's kind of just waiting to rip off a band-aid for you?
Uh, that's a really good question, and I got to tell you, I really haven't thought too much about it. But just as a preliminary off the top of my head, I think it could sustain me for a while. I mean, I'm doing it right now, and it's not really causing me a ton of grief to do just kind of the bare minimum. And for
Yeah.
the most part, it's handling things more on the day to day basis with the guild that my alt is the leader of. So
Right.
it's background things instead of more in game things. So for the most part, I mean it's not really too difficult. I'm not spending. So since our interview, I had the first interview there. I haven't spent a dime in the game.
Wow. Okay.
Fennec Shan came out. Still don't have. I mean, I unlocked her and I put her all the way up as far as I could get her geared, and that was it. I didn't spend a dime on her.
Did that feel weird to you? I mean, for you've spent $100,000 on the game, right? And
Yeah,
it's you've bought every marquee character effectively as they've come out and taken them to max almost or close to. Um, yeah, tell me about that. What was that like?
yeah. So since probably the characters started coming out for Jedi Knight Revan,
Yeah,
that was around the first time I really started to whale. So you figure, you know, 3.5, 4 years
it's
ago.
a while ago. Yeah,
Um, yeah, and that was whenever I really kind of started to spend and make sure I get all the characters that I needed. So it was really weird, and there was a little bit of that muscle memory that wanted to go into the shipments and just keep buying.
yeah,
But then I realized, what am I giving my money to? Which is ultimately a company that I don't really see has, for as much as we praise for some of the things that we do. Now, I know that we're probably going to talk into, how they're trying to relieve the gear crunch. You're going to have to refresh me on that because, like I said, I haven't really been paying attention.
okay,
But everything that they do, there's always the one step forward and anywhere between 1 and 5 steps back. So think about it. If you have a so we while we're saying that they're alleviating the gear crunch, if you were at a relic 7 character and you wanted to take your relic 7 character to relic 9, to get all of paying cash outright to get from 7 to 9 would require you to spend $250.
yeah.
I mean, for some people that's more than their car payment a month.
That's more than my car
So
payment actually. Yeah,
right, so while
yeah,
they say that they're going to relieve that gear crunch,
yeah.
they're making it so that the stuff at the end of the rainbow is still insane to get.
Do you feel like,
So like,
though,
yeah,
if I could challenge this just a little bit,
yeah.
Nem, because we've seen a lot of increasing of the gate, right? It's always kind of been this way. We've seen Gear 11 to Gear 12, Gear 12 to Gear 13. We've seen Gear 13 to Relics, to Relic 8, to Relic 9 now. And every time we've done that, we haven't had this big address of the gear crunch. It's always been little drops, right? And so we have plenty of examples of expanding that gate without addressing the gear crunch. And so do you think that there would be justification, at least for some people, to think, well, hey, this is, yeah, I mean, it is expanding, but we've seen it expand without this adjustment, so I'm still happy about what they're doing here.
And here's going to be my counter to that.
Okay.
And it's going to be something that you might not have actually kind of thought of. What does them trying to relieve the gear crunch, who does it really help? It helps the people that are start of the game until people that start to get to that end game sort of content.
Right.
So once you start to get to that end game content, unless you're trying to gear somebody for fun, for the most part, you're not gearing anybody for the fun of it anymore. You're only going to gear for a GL character.
Right.
So in essence, they're only getting you to make it easier for you to get to that relic level for any of those GL character requirements. And then it's insane to try to relic them up. So, I mean, if you think about it, yes, they are making it easier for some people, especially in the early stages of the game, to be able to progress your characters more. But at the same time, all they're really doing is they're making it so that people are going to start gearing up for more GLs. And once we think about it as it's such a pain in the butt to try to get your characters up to G13 and relic level. But if you're really thinking about it in the grand scheme of things, getting all of the characters to relic level, just relic 0, is half the battle of trying to get to the requirements for a GL.
Right. I guess.
So like, and
I see it from
that's why I look at it is they're throwing you that bone.
Yeah.
But at the same time, they're doing things that make it so that it's almost like you needed 4 R8s alone for Vader.
Yeah.
So in order to try to get to that is completely unrealistic. But what they're doing is it's like that, thinking of putting the carrot out in front of the dog or the pig that's walking on the treadmill. All it's doing is just enticing it to keep run, but it can never get to that point.
Right. Well, and I think there's part of it. I respect what you're saying, and those are the feelings I have a lot of the time too. With the pig, that just keeps going. I think that's something, if you're not spending on this game, if you're not willing to spend a ton of money on this game, something that someone like me has just come to accept is I'm never going to be there. I will always be behind. And there's a certain degree of acceptance and self-awareness I just need to have for that. And that kind of leads me into a question. For you, it's been different. Like, you've been spending the amount to be there, to be at the cutting edge of this game. And so does part of that kind of play into this for you, where it's just like, you know what? I don't want to keep spending on this level to stay where I'm at. And so it's kind of difficult to dial that back and get into this mindset of being behind.
Well, and it would be, well, first of all, I want to ask you, do you think it's right that you should have to feel that way? That you really don't ever have a light at the end of your tunnel? I like how you're flipping this question
right now. I think this could lead.
I'll come back to it and I'll answer from my side, but I want to know for you, because do you feel that that's right?
You're making this way more interesting. I love this question, because to me, this bleeds into the ethics of mobile gaming in general, right? Because this is just how every free-to-play mobile game is, right? Our slice of the pie is Star Wars Galaxy of Heroes. We see it with Marvel Future Revolution, Marvel Strike Force, Clash of Clans, freaking Candy Crush. Like, everything has this monetized microtransaction, always perpetually behind unless you're spending tons of money. And even then, you're going to have to keep spending that money. I don't think it's right. Personally, I think that there is a serious ethical issue in the mobile gaming industry. And that's just a truth that I have kind of come to accept, that it's just these games are engineered to pull out as much money as they possibly can. I think that there is maybe ethics isn't the right word, but I think I've seen presentations before. There's one that went viral in particular that kind of talked about the psychology of getting your player base addicted to the game in terms of spending and creating whales and things like that. And I don't love that the industry is like that. I don't love it at all. But kind of the way I've come to view it is this is a truth that I live with. And so I boil it down to the individual level. What am I getting out of this game? Right? I'm getting a community out of this game. I do love the game. I love Star Wars, and I love interacting with a lot of things in this game. And so I personally only spend because I don't spend because I want to get ahead. If I spend, it's because one, I can afford it, and two, I'm like, you know what? I want to have that, so I'm going to go buy it. But I personally just cannot go to a place with spending that I am spending to be ahead. And is that right? No, I don't think that pay to win is a very good concept for gaming. I think it's kind of a cancer to the industry.
And I think another issue with it is that now with these GL farms is that they're taking the fun out of it. So that,
Yeah.
You can gear up your squad that, if you want it, like if you really like Jawas, you can go ahead and gear up those Jawas, but don't expect them to do anything for you.
Yeah.
So unless you want to gear up what they're telling you to gear up, you're out of luck. And that's how I want to tie that back into the question you asked me was, as a person that always had the latest and greatest that's out there, how does it kind of feel to be on that? And it felt good at the time, until kind of I soured a little bit on the game,
Right.
with everything is at. And then at that point in time, I kind of saw the big picture of everything. So now it's like, you want me to spend all this money to get Lord Vader or JMK. All right, that's awesome. I really like those characters. Those two characters alone cannot stand even in the arena meta without having to go and do the conquest to get max crate to unlock Cat or Maul.
Yeah.
That's where it's upsetting.
Yeah.
If you want me to go out and spend the money to go and get this new thing, make them at least viable a little bit. Like I have Lord Vader and I don't have Maul because I don't care.
Well, nobody has Maul yet, but yeah, I know what you mean. Conquest just didn't do it for you.
Yeah. So Lord Vader just sits on my bench. I've had Lord Vader with the ultimate within the first hour and a half of that event going live, and I have not used it in arena once. Because JMK with Cat is better.
Yeah. Yeah, it is, objectively.
So I mean that's where I have issue, is that it's not ever and I guess this is part of the thing that they want us to do. So I can see why they're doing the things that they do, because and I'm sure you can remember the days of both Jedi Revan and Darth Revan, and everybody complained that the meta was so stale.
It was, yeah.
And now they want to try to create some sort of level of parity within the arena meta so that it's not all just the same. And while I guess we have that a little bit, they're changing so quickly with things that there's no way to try to keep up with it. So that, the JML meta was great. Everybody wanted JML or C, and there was this nice little balance whenever it was the four of them. And then JMK came in, and okay, well, he's pretty good. He can kind of hold his own in the right little squads. Oh, we're going to throw Cat into here. And now JMK is the clear arena meta. And once Maul comes into it, that's probably going to make Vader the clear arena meta.
Or at least share it with JMK.
To be honest, I think it's going to do nothing but push Vader up and over.
Yeah, potentially.
And that is now the issue that I have with that.
So
I was okay with it whenever there were 4 GLs and you could kind of have some parity, and they each had their own little hard counter. You could use each one of them in their own little, niche areas and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
But now they're making it so that we're going to make GLs that are going to be good, but if you get this one little extra piece that we're going to make you devote anywhere between 5 and 40 hours in over the course of 2 weeks, then that's going to make that character the best in the game. That's what they're taking some of that parity out, because they're telling you need to do this in order to be competitive.
And that's something I will, one point you made a little bit earlier that I resonate with a lot from where I'm at, as somebody who pretty much accepts, like, I'm perpetually behind, I'm okay with this, but, or at least I've accepted this. It's just kind of the way it is. I really, really get frustrated with having all of the requirements for GLs the way that they are, because I don't have player agency on what characters right now I'm going to take to Relic 8. Because if I want to continue to go for the best characters in the game, the path is laid before me. Like, these are the characters you farm. And with the pace that they're doing them at, like, I'll give an example. Okay, I've wanted to Relic Nest for ages. I can't deter to go Relicer because I have to farm these things for GLs first. I can't stop on that. And I want to Relic 8 other characters in the game that are, or Relic 9 even, other characters in the game that could be great. Like, I'd love to take my JML to Relic 9 as my first Relic 9, but I'm really hesitant to do that once I get there because it's going to take so long, and what are the GL requirements for Relic 9 potentially going to be? And so I think that's where sometimes the player agency comes into play for me, and I think that they need to find more ways to balance that player agency to decide, all right, well, here's the characters you farm for this, fine, but we also want to create value for, you know what, I've got a passion project, I want to do that, and have avenues for you to do that without screwing yourself over. Because if I were to farm a passion project right now, it would really damage my progression in the game because of how long it takes to get there.
Yeah, and here's where I do have an issue with all of that too, is we won't even go into Relic 9, but just Relic 8.
Okay.
we should not be told where to spend your Relic 8s. If you are a free-to-play player, even with the changes they've made, for you to get one character to go from R7 to R8, I would say free-to-play is still probably a month.
It's a while. Yeah.
Because while you might be able to get the little whatever, the one piece that's out of the raid now better,
right?
You're still going to have to farm up the gear that is an insane conversion rate to get the other half of that R8.
Yeah.
So for them to say that you have to put R8s in order to unlock this next GL, that's especially where I have an issue. If they would just cap it GLs and say R7, because that's the original model. Yeah. If you want to make it so that instead of Vader having 4 R8s, it's 6 R7s, fine, because it's easier to try to get the R7 than it is to try to go from 7 to 8.
Yep.
And now the follow-up question is going to be, how long until your GL rec is no longer going to be an R8. It's going to be an R9.
And that door was already basically opened when I did an interview with Crumb and asked him the question, are we going to see Relic 9? He said he couldn't confirm it, but he said I would imagine, basically, that would be.
I mean, think about it. R8 was around for, what was it, 9 months before we started
wasn't
getting
it the very next round of GLs we got after Relic 8 was a thing? We had the requirements. Yeah.
Yep.
So,
because we had what they released JML and C.
Yep.
And then we got Crankcore for R8.
Yep.
And then the very next one was GK.
Yep.
GK was
we're gonna
R8 on the first one.
Yeah, this is gonna happen. I've got 2 more questions for you, and then I want to appeal to the chat. Everyone who's watching this live, we're glad to have you guys. I've been kind of monitoring your input right now, and I really appreciate everything that's being said. Ask questions to Nem. If there's anything interesting, I'll pop it on the screen, and we'll talk to Nem about it. But Nem, I'm curious for you. Again, 2 questions from me, and then we'll go to the chat. What would you like to see, like right now, or what do you think you would need to kind of shift your mentality about the game and get to a place where you're either back to where you were or just more motivated to play the game? What would you want to see from CG right now?
That's a good question, and I honestly don't know if I have an answer.
Fair enough.
Because I'm legitimately so down on the game. I mean, if you think about the past 2 characters that have come out, which are Fennec and Vader. One of them I didn't even spend on. Yeah. The other one I got completely maxed within the first hour and a half, and I felt nothing out of it. I felt no joy. I felt nothing. So at this point in time, I honestly don't know what they would have to do. I think part of it is they would have to try to relieve some of the time crunch that they want you to spend into this game. Not only is it a time crunch to have to play Conquest, like for me, I select hard mode of Conquest just so that I don't have to see that little red dot on my screen.
Wow. So you're not doing Conquest at all right now?
The last one and this one, so far, I have not done one battle between both of my accounts.
Wow.
Not one.
And you were, before this...
The first one, whenever Maul first came out, I did enough to get up to the last tier, up to tier 5 or whatever it is. And that was it. I never beat tier 5. I never went back and tried to get any of the feats. I played it because I was bored, and that was it.
Wow. Before Maul, were you getting red crate? Before Maul, it was just this iteration of Conquest just kind of made you go, oh my gosh, I can't do this.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I had red crate on my main account within the first 4 or 5 days.
Yeah. Okay. So maybe some adjustments to Conquest 10 could help, but right now, just really not. You're kind of not in the best place with the game, and I think that's pretty fair.
Well, and part of it, like I said, is the time crunch too, and it's not just within the Conquest area. If you think about it now, I'm a guild leader on one of my accounts.
Yeah.
The amount of time that now has to go into territory wars is ridiculous.
That's pretty crazy.
The first one after they made the change, Ghosts of Mortis is 300 million GP. And we went from a max of 25 per zone. The first time we had 33.
Yeah. Yeah, I was a little confused. I'm not sure.
Where do they want us to put? How do they want you to fill that with defenses that are worth a nickel and still be able to have enough to be able to be on offense and be able to try to do anything besides get through 2 zones?
Yeah. I see this one both ways. There's parts of me that likes it and parts of me that don't like it, but probably the biggest thing that I kind of come back to thinking about with Territory Wars specifically is right now we have a grind problem in the game, right? with grind quest, right? Like it just became, they ramped up the grind so substantially that it really burnt a lot of people out, yourself included. I'm having a hard time playing it. I haven't max created. Yeah, I've been playing the conquests, but I've been having a hard time motivating myself to really get in there and go for that max crate when my roster would definitely handle max crate. And so the timing of it is a little bit tough to go from that grind, and then we're going to go to some old content and ramp up that grind by about double as well. And also make it really vital because we're adding the Relic 9 in there. So we got two of the most valuable resources in the game grind gated behind Territory Wars for Relic 9 and Conquest for Maul Shards. And so the timing of those two things hitting at the same time, I think just really, this is very discouraging for a lot of people.
Yeah, well, and to go into more of it, so they're going to be nice and put Relic 9 into Territory War. Okay, but you're going to gate it at 300 million GP.
Yeah.
So now, basically, every guild that is, I would say, 275 million up through, we'll say 330. So we'll say roughly a 60 million GP box for it.
Yeah.
It's really, unless you are a hardcore Territory War guild, you're in a really tough place.
Yeah.
Like, for instance, going back to my alt, Ghosts Immortus, we're right at 300 million. So if we got all 50 to join, technically we would be playing for R9 mats.
But you're not getting all 50 to join.
Well, we could force all 50 to join and we could do it. The problem with that is that we have people that don't care about Territory War.
So they join and do nothing, right?
Exactly the point.
Yeah.
So then whenever, so for a while there, we had a mandate where everybody had to join, and we were basically just getting our clock cleaned every single time because we're going up against other guilds that are in that 300 mil range.
Yeah.
And they're Territory War focused, and they're not necessarily a mandatory sign up, but it's, if you sign up, you participate. So we're getting creamed. So then we went to an area where we said it's no longer mandatory. If you sign up, you participate. And at that point in time, we were dropping down to anywhere between 270 and 280.
Right.
And we were more competitive. We were winning some of it.
It's tough,
and now,
man.
so now we're in that area where it's either we're going to force everybody to play, and we're going to end up losing and not get the R9, but at least we have the chance for it. Or we're going to go and say it's still a voluntary sign up, but we're not playing for R9 mats. It's going to be the same thing for any guild that is within, plus or minus 25 million of that 300 million spot.
Yeah. Out of the recent updates, it's the number one thing I really want to see them revisit. I'm excited about the gear changes. They did say that they would open the door to adjusting how they're doing things with Territory Wars, but I see almost no benefit to the reward system the way it is with Territory Wars and Relic 9.
Yeah, it's not fair to a large section of this game.
Yeah.
Because if you think about it, yeah, you have the uber whales that are in those guilds that are 355, 360 million GP and up.
Yeah.
And then you have the guilds that aren't necessarily going into GOTB at your, they're still trying it, but they're not really doing great in that 225 to 250 range and down.
Right.
But you have a massive section of guilds that are all in that 275 to 325 range. Anytime I see somebody that's looking to come to our guild, they're coming from someone that's already around 275 to 280.
Right.
And they're just wanting to go up a little bit more in order to get maybe one extra star or a couple extra cam shards. That is such a huge demoralizer to a guild in general. Like
It is.
I feel like it's going to have the opposite effect. And instead of galvanizing guilds, what it's going to do is it's going to do the same thing that happened whenever you had the launch of the tank raid, and you're just going to have people that are going to have to start moving and go, well, I'm a 5 million GP account. My current guild is at 260. They're going to start reaching out to those guilds that are 340 million and saying, what do I need to do in order to be able to get on your wait list to get in for that next spot? What am
Yeah.
I going to have to do?
We're already seeing that. Yeah,
And
we're already seeing that.
and then what happens is that it's going to build a bigger gap.
Mhm.
So instead of having a more evenly spaced guilding system, you're going to have a ton of guilds that are going to be high end over 300, or you're going to have a whole ton of guilds that are low end under 225. You're just going to have a natural delineating line of, I need to go get R9, or I'm not in a place where I can join a guild to get to R9. I need to get to that place. So it's not going to be as much loyalty to your guild whenever you're at a lower end and trying to grow with them, as much as it's, I just want to get to the next level.
Or you have to choose between loyalty to the guild and, I mean, kind of loyalty to yourself and your roster growth and the ability eventually to access the top end new GLs that are coming to the game, because they will inevitably have that behind Relic 9. I like that they are finding ways to reward winning in Territory Wars more. I don't think this is the way to do it, though, to gate this resource specifically behind victory in Territory War, number one, and number two, being at in a certain power level for a guild. I think that we should celebrate players who are miles ahead of their guilds and kind of helping carry their guilds along, or maybe they're, somebody's at 8 million GP, but you know what? They've been raiding with these guys forever and they're in a 200 million GP guild. I don't think that we should have built-in mechanics that make those players feel like they have to leave their guilds to a certain degree. One final question for you, Nem, and I'm not seeing a lot of questions in the chat, so we'll probably just end on this one. But I hope I'm not going to sound like a jerk when I ask this, but I got to ask, okay?
Go for it.
You know me. I'm not being rude, but
Would never think you were.
$100,000 spent on the game. Do you have regrets?
No, I don't.
Good for you.
I don't have regrets because I enjoyed it at the time.
Awesome.
If I were to spend now, I would regret it because I'm not enjoying the game. So if I were to go out and spend the $250 or $300 or whatever it would be for me to get Fennec up to, I don't know, Relic 5,
yeah,
I'd feel guilty about that. Like, what am I putting my money to? I just spent all this money and I don't care. Like it's not, you know what I mean? Like, that's the thing. Whenever I was spending at the height of my spending, I did it and I was okay with it.
Yeah.
Even whenever I got, because this was before GLs, whenever I was still going real hard, I was on a quest to get every single character up to G13. And I even got that before we got to even before we got our first, GLs in
right.
Kylo and Rey. I had every single character up to at least Relic 1. And
That's crazy.
whenever I was relicking Rose,
yeah,
a character that in Star Wars I just don't care about. Plus, it's a character in the game that is such hot garbage.
What?
It didn't bother me.
Yeah.
But like, it didn't bother me. Or IG-86. I don't care. It was still fun for me to do that because I was enjoying the game. I was enjoying playing. And now I look at it and I go, man, if I spend that money, I'm going to feel dirty about it.
Yeah.
Like
I like
I'm not
this.
gonna feel happy about myself doing it because what am I getting out of this? I'm not going for this character because they're going to make me happy right now. Like if I went out and wailed on Fennec,
Yeah.
she was not going to turn my enjoyment around on this game. She wasn't going to do it.
I like
Even
this
if
this
even if I
this
went and got and played Conquest, the red crates, and got
yeah.
Maul,
Yeah.
she wasn't going to make my enjoyment of this game go up at this point in time.
Mm. And the spending before did that.
It did. I was happy spending with the game.
So that right there, guys,
I
that's the
didn't just do it
crux.
because I wanted to. I did it
Yeah.
because I was happy doing it.
I really think this is at the heart of the question for anybody out there who's wondering, like, oh my gosh, how could this guy spend this much on this thing? It's not an investment. I think we use that word too much because we're kind of talking game language, like investing into a certain character so you can use them later. But this isn't like you're spending money on a house. You're spending money on other things that are going to have resale value. You're spending on entertainment. The money's spent and is gone. And you only spend the money when it is bringing you happiness. And so I like that you're able to have that kind of perspective about it, Nem, because I think that's where we all need to be with spending on this game. If we're spending out of some form of obligation or feeling like we've got a little bit of that sunk cost fallacy, like I've got to keep spending because I spent this much, so I got to keep going. Only spend when it's bringing you happiness, like this thing in front of you. If you want to go buy that, great. I think you get in trouble when it's just to get a competitive advantage and it's maybe out of some kind of obligation to what you've spent before. That's where a lot of those addictions and sunk cost fallacies and troubles can kind of come up. But if it's just you know what, this is what I want, this is going to make me enjoy the game more, then you do you and you go for it. And that's it's no different for Nem. It was just that Nem's budget was on a different level than most people get to enjoy, and good for you, Nem. Good for you. I think that's great.
And that's one thing I'm going to say to everybody. You know, you're either in one of two camps where you either criticize, well, it used to be where you would be in one of two camps where you would either criticize the people that spent a ton or you would criticize the people that didn't spend anything.
Right.
And we've gotten away from criticizing the people that didn't spend anything because, you know, the game has gotten so just kind of predatory in nature whenever it comes to the dollar amounts that being free to play isn't necessarily seen as something that's a negative anymore. It's probably more the norm than people that whale.
It is. It's like probably 90-10, I would guess.
If I had to guess.
Yeah.
But to chastise people that spend in a game, I mean, you're entitled to your opinion, I guess, but who are you to criticize how I spend my money?
And I'm
You
also going to
know,
dispel
and
this
I'm
right
going to
now.
say that as if someone wants to go out and spend their money on something that I find to be silly, go for it. If you're not hurting anybody, go for it. I don't care. If it
it's
makes you
not
happy,
a
do what
gambling
brings you
addiction.
joy.
I've got this comment here that it's like whaling on a game is like a gambling addiction. It's very different depending on your perspective, right? I mean, if I'm spending money because I'm hoping RNG hits me with a good thing, great. That's fine. That's a little bit more like gambling. But when you're spending on this level, it's like the comment I threw on the board. It's more like spending money on expensive sport tickets or concerts because, you know, you're spending money on this entertainment and then it's gone, right? It's not where you're the addiction for gambling. Trust me, from the perspective of the therapist, comes from that constant drive to hit it big, to hit that, you know, that jackpot, to hit that, or maybe not even jackpot, but to get more than you bring in. And then over time, you don't realize just how much money you're losing from that. That's the difference there. So to me, there are gambling mechanics in the game and there can be similarities, but it's what Nem has done on this game, spending wise, is very different than what it would look like to somebody who lost $100,000 gambling in Vegas.
And I think the problem comes in is, do you have the money?
Bingo.
So for me, that's a big thing. Whenever it
Yeah.
becomes to be a problem is if you're still spending $300 or $500 a week on this game, but you're struggling to pay your bills or put food on your table, that's whenever it's an issue.
Yeah.
But as long as you're not getting to a point where, my bills are paid, my kids are going to school, my kids are fed, all that stuff is taken care of. I have that discretionary income to do with it as I want.
Let me make a
And if and
contrast.
if I'm not happy with it, I'm not compelled to still spend. And that's the other half of it is not only do you have the money, but do you feel compelled? So
So,
it's and that's where the problem
yeah.
is. Even if you have the money, if you feel compelled to spend, then
Yeah.
it's still an issue. So it's either do you not have the money but you're still spending, that's an issue. Do you have the money, don't want to spend it, but you're just forced to spend because of the habit? That's where it's an issue. Whenever you can kind of separate those two and go, I have the money, I want to spend it, or I don't want to spend it, that's whenever you can say, I've spent 100K, but it was done healthy because I was able to delineate between problem and enjoyment.
Yeah. Yeah. It's and here's the bottom line that we could look at this, we could flip this right back on free to play players out there. I think that this is turning into a really interesting discussion. I appreciate you kind of hanging with me for a bit here, Nem, to go here with this.
I'm
But
doing nothing the rest
you
of the day, so you got me as long as you want.
so you can have a whale who is spending hundreds of thousands of dollars on this game have no problems in his life and no negative repercussions from this game. It's just an expensive hobby. He can afford it. And you could have a free-to-play player who's ruining his life with this game. That's possible. The question, and this is something I get into sometimes with clients that I work with on random addictions that people have, not your alcohol, your drugs, things like that are so obviously going to negatively impact you, but things like working out, things like, eating or other kind of seemingly innocent activities that can become addictive. And where do you draw the line on when a addiction or hobby is bad for you? And a lot of times that line, in my perspective, is drawn by, is this enhancing the quality of your life or is it damaging your quality of life? And a lot of times that damage comes from the relationships around you. Are you seeing relationships around you deteriorate because of how much time you're spending in this game? And you could be a heavy whale who spends a lot of money on this game and not see any of that happening in your life. And you could be a free-to-play player that is so focused on this game and spending so much time, effort, and energy into the game that you see relationships around you starting to fall apart. Who's better off in that case? And so I think really with these kind of discussions, we always got to look in the mirror and not try to get in anybody else's business. What's good for you? What's good? What's good for you? What's good? No, what's good for me right now and where I'm at in the game. There's always going to be people spending money on things that I can't spend money on. I don't need to take time or waste time worrying about that. I only need to worry about my own actions. Take a moment, look inside. Is this game enhancing my quality of life? How many people in my life are constantly frustrated with me for how much time I'm spending on my phone playing this game? If that number's 0, great, you're doing good. If that number's kind of high and if it's really important people in your life, then you really might want to look inward and evaluate yourself and not worry so much about the whales of the world that are spending money on the game, because you've got loved ones in your life that are pissed off at you for how much time you're spending on the game. And so anyway, I think it's important to acknowledge that problems that can come from mobile gaming and just gaming in general aren't just money related. We've got to be conscious of what's going on around us and the time that we spend in these games and if they're damaging relationships and our overall quality of life.
Yeah, to just echo off of that, I didn't want to try to make it out like, someone that is free to play can't also have an addiction problem with it.
Yeah.
But we were just kind of on the topic of spending and was staying there.
Yeah.
but yeah, I mean, you're absolutely right.
Well,
If you're
I
free
bring
to
it up
play
because just
and
for the
you're
free to play
at the
players,
point
like,
where
don't just
you're
look at
missing,
whales, right?
right, if you're missing your kids, dance recital because you're in the bathroom playing SWGoH, that's a problem. If you
Yeah.
if you have to hit this raid because you need to go for those rewards because you're a new player and you need to get that, that's where it's a problem in terms of the free to play.
Yeah.
So I'm just echoing your sentiment. That's all. I just wanted to say that I didn't say it wasn't possible. I was just talking about the spending aspect because that's where we were at the time.
This has been a great discussion, Nem. I think there's a lot of good things that came out of this that go well beyond whether or not you're quitting the game right now. But I really appreciate you joining for the video and having this discussion. I think that's a good place to wrap it up. Was there anything that we didn't get to that you wanted to say to everyone before we end the video?
Yeah. As I said, I'm still playing the game because not of enjoyment, but because of the camaraderie that I have with my guildmates and with the community at large.
Right.
Do it if that's what still keeps you happy. But if you're at the point where you're not enjoying the game, you're not enjoying the community, you don't have to feel obligated to stay. And for me, that's where I'm at, is while I'm not enjoying the game, I am still enjoying the community of it. So for me, that is enough of a driving factor for me to say, I like playing with these people. I like talking to these people. I like spending time with them in this virtual arena. That's enough for me to want to keep hanging out with them and staying with them and doing this.
Right.
But if you're not feeling that same sense, don't think that you have to stay here.
Right.
At the end of the day, remember, it is just a game. And while, don't stay because you just feel obligated. Stay because you genuinely like something, whether it's the game or the community. So don't ever think that you have to play or you have to spend or you have to do anything out of obligation. None of this is an obligation. None of this is a job. If it is not doing...
I mean, if you're me.
Well, yes, for you it is a job. For
not even the game, though, just the community, really.
For the rest of us that have a 9-to-5, remember, this is not your job.
Yeah.
This is not what's putting, unless you're a full-time streamer, this is not what's putting the food on your table.
Right.
Don't feel like if you don't get max red crate on Conquest, that you're somehow letting yourself or someone else down. You're allowed to have a life outside of this game.
Right.
That's where it is. And I think that CG has kind of lost sight of that a little bit. Is that, in their quest to somehow make you have to do less things with simming things, put you into the game even longer.
Yeah.
So instead of you having to do your assault battles, here's 6 extra hours of conquest that you have to do. What?
Yeah.
What? It took me a half an hour to go through assault battles that I had to do, once every 3 weeks? But now every 2 weeks, you're going to give me anywhere between 6 and 15 extra hours I got to play the game? Where do you want me to find that time? And that's why everybody needs to remember that this ain't your job.
Right.
Unless you're making money off of it, this ain't your job. So find that happy balance for you. If it's not doing conquest or finding a guild that is lax on territory wars and you don't have to join it, you can take a week off, do it. Find whatever makes you happy. That's my soapbox for the day.
It was a great soapbox, Nem. Thank you. Everyone give Nem a round of applause. Thank you very much for jumping in, Nem. And hopefully we see some changes with Conquest 10 and other things coming forward, but I always love giving voice to the community and where people are at, and your very raw, authentic perspective is valuable, not just because you spent money on the game, but because you are one of the, I think, most important members of my community and several communities in this game. You're out there, you're very, very involved and have been very involved, and we all love and respect you, Nem, so thank you very much for coming.
Thank you. And I know I'll get crushed for this just as much as you have in the past, but just remember, I'm the newly baptized and free to play.
Wow, NEMA free to play. How long will that last? We're going to take bets down below in the chat. We'll go to Vegas.
Over a month now.
I'm putting the over under at 1 extra month from here, guys, and we'll see where it goes. And I'm just playing. All right, thank you so much for joining me for the video. Please like it if you guys enjoyed the chat. And as always, my brothers, don't forget,